What's up, guys? So today I did some thinking and I looked at all the past arguments I've had, and I looked to see how many of them I actually won through just logic, just logical reasoning and proving that I'm correct. And quite honestly, there haven't been a lot. And I'm sure that for a lot of you guys, it's the same sort of thing. I mean, look back at all of your previous arguments you've made throughout your life and look to see how many of them ended with your opposing person saying, you know what? You're absolutely correct. I thought differently before, but after you proved through your logic how I was wrong, now I'm completely convinced, and walk away. Probably not very often. And I look to see, when did it actually happen? When did this actually work? And I realized the only real times was in scenarios where there was a very common answer and logic was the only rule of choice and there were zero other factors, namely just inside math class. And I'm going to explain to you guys exactly why this is the case and why exactly it doesn't work. And before this moment today, I used to use logic quite a lot to try and get my point across. I thought that by using just logic and reasoning, you could objectively make someone understand your point to a point where you understand that it has to be the right outcome, the right answer. There's no way around it. And that certainly is not the case. And quite honestly, I'm going to be using logic a lot less. And I mean, it's very important to use, but you can't depend solely on just this. And I'm going to explain to you why. So basically, there's a lot of other factors involved in real life. I mean, life is not math class. It is not so simple. And even if you look at things that are similar, like debate club, it's not that simple either. Like you would think in debate club, for sure, you would be able to logically reason and prove an outcome. Well, if you've actually been to debate club, and I have debated a little bit with the president of my club at one point. I think he was the president, I'm not sure. But basically, it's not like that. Even in debate club, the topics that they present are forcibly controversial. Therefore, there is not a right answer, and that is, again, to play a sort of even playing field. But at the same time, you're never going to get anyone backing down. And it's simply a matter of skill and presenting your reasons better than the opponent, rather than actually revealing some sort of truth. And this has to do a lot to do with life, because if you look at broad spectrums of topics such as politics and even science, I mean, science, you would think a lot of things are, very, very concrete and you can't argue with them. Well, even in science and even in the advanced spectrums of math, this is not the case for sure, because a lot of things are just theories until a better theory comes along to make it better. And that is why if you're actually in the scientific community, you realize that there's so much arguing going on, so much debate, and so much evidence being put forth, and that is why there's so many research studies nowadays in the scientific community. And even like the most basic laws, like you would think the theory of gravity, why do they use the term theory instead of something like fact? Because everything is simply a theory until proven otherwise, and gravity itself has undergone lots of debates until finally, with a lot of evidence, it seems fairly clear how it seems to behave. But do we have it down pat? Probably not. In fact, most things, and I'm going to go back to my politics thing, are subjective. There is no right answer. There is no perfect way of raising your kids or establishing a government. And we will never achieve perfect. There are just different avenues, different structures and methods that can come close to perfect. And that's why it's subjective. There is no right answer. And that is why, through logic alone, you can never truly establish which one is better, because it is subjective. And that is why you can't really win out through logic unless you're really like in math class. And I mean, it sucks because I myself would try and use logic with my friends, my family, my loved ones. And I'm sure you guys have. I mean, think to the times you have argued with logic with your friends and family and your loved ones. And you're thinking, if I can just, keep it objective, keep the emotions out, and logically explain to them through reasons and all this stuff why I'm right, then they'll surely have to concede my point. And the times you think this, I want you to think back. Are you truly 100% sure that this is the holy truth to answers? Most likely not. A lot of things you think are really truths is honestly very subjective and simply a struggle of wills. There is no right answer. There's no correct result, you could say. And I'm going to give you a clear example. I used to argue a lot with my mom about practicing the piano. Now, first off, is there a right answer? Is practicing piano the correct truth, the correct logical answer? And there is no answer, is my answer. Because, I mean, we were not born to play piano. We weren't born destined to, practice piano every day. Nor would it be unbeneficial not to practice and learn more about such an enriching culture. It's a very subjective thing, and it comes down to just a struggle of wills. There's no right answer. Both parties are, in a way, struggling for their own selfish gains, and neither party is technically correct. In a way, looking back, I would say my mom would have been, in fact, more the right one, because she was not as selfish as me. She was really looking out for my long-term interests, because practicing piano enriches yourself and makes you grow and understand music at a better level. And I mean, what else would I have wanted to do with my time? Probably something I would probably regret to this day, 5 to 10 years down the road, which was playing video games or doing something that rots my brain instead of something enriching as piano. Now, being Asian, I know you can take it to a hardcore level, and sometimes they will ask for too much. I mean, it sure is an enriching experience until your parents are forcing you to practice 2 hours of piano today, and it's like every day, 2 hours per day. It's too much. It's too dull, and it's crazy. But sometimes it just comes down to a struggle of wills and a struggle of what people want, and there really isn't a right answer. I mean, even if you're a piano prodigy and you're gifted with piano, that doesn't mean anything. Like, that doesn't mean you have to practice piano. I mean, look how cool a life it would be if you were born given a gift you don't want, and all these people are enforcing these sort of restrictions on you to practice this and develop this gift if you horribly, tragically hate the thing you're doing, the pastime you're doing. I mean, you could be a chess prodigy and hate chess, and everyone's saying you have to practice. So, quite honestly, a lot of times it's just down to a struggle of wills, and sometimes it can get more logical, but I mean, let's look at another example. I used to argue with my mom about other things. One of them was getting a job, and she wanted me to get a job that was unpaid. It was hard work. It was boring. It wasn't something I wanted to do. It was monotonous. But at the same time, she wanted me to do it simply because of job experience, future opportunities, and stuff like that. Now, who's the right person here? This is more like a struggle of wills, and some people might say this is a completely one-sided thing. You should listen to your mom. But others, on the other hand, would say, look, you have to listen to your passions. You want to look for a job you want to do. And then others would say, look at the economy right now. You have to take any experience you can get so you can establish your resume and so you can get to your passionate job in the future. So even if you don't want to do this now, it could help in the long run to get a job you want to do. And quite honestly, all of this, like it or not, is subjective. It isn't like math where 1 plus 1 is equal to 2 and there's no two ways about it. And quite honestly, if you get into advanced math, that may not even be the case. But I'm not an advanced mathematician, so I wouldn't know too much about that. But I do know in other fields like science and other stuff, where you would assume things to be very, very black and white, it's really a lot of gray. I mean, physics is a huge one. Physics for sure. Look at quantum mechanics. But back to my topic with my mom and this stuff. A lot of this stuff is very, very subjective. It's based on your own personal opinion, and there is no right answer. What is your real goal, and it's what is your real result that you want? All these factors play into it. And quite honestly, my point isn't to get too deep into this. My point is just that don't argue too much based on logic, because a lot of the time when you're arguing with these people, it comes down to a struggle of wills, and you have to realize that because it's a struggle of wills, it's basically just a battle of who gets this limited resource or who gets what they want on top of someone else. And most arguments tend to be something along the lines of, we only have this one resource and I want it, you want it too, we're going to argue over this. Or I want this to happen, you want this to happen, let's argue and see who gets what they want. So, I mean, put the selfishness aside and look at things from a different perspective. Try and be unselfish. I mean, a great way to do this is just do charity work. Charity work removes the focus from you, and you look at people who are much more in need, much more in poverty. Sometimes you'll see things that are hard to watch, and you'll realize with stuff like starvation and clean water that your petty, trivial things are trivial compared to theirs. And it removes the focus, which removes the tragedy, the stress, stuff like that. And you realize that a lot of things that you are arguing over are very trivial in the greater scheme of things. I mean, beyond even charity work, beyond what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing for kids in Africa right now. Beyond that, just look at life in general. Whatever you're arguing on, whatever trivial thing, potentially it being a worldly thing or superficial thing, will pass in time. At the end of the day, on your deathbed, when you are 70, 80 years old, and you're about to die, you'll realize, and I mean, I've heard this a lot from people who work at places with a lot of old people dying every day. The one thing they wish they did more was establish good connections with other human beings. And that is what you will leave this world with. Probably not how much money you accrued at the moment of your deathbed. So keep the selfishness aside, and back again to my example with me and my mom arguing. Logic does play a good point. It's not to say like you should never use logic in an argument. It's just saying that don't be frustrated, don't be mad, don't feel like it doesn't make sense if you're arguing and your points are solid and they're just not conceding and you're frustrated about that. There's so much more in real life, so many more factors like emotions, like just general interest, just people unrelenting and not giving up, and just maybe people looking out for your better interests in life. And maybe they're just not seeing it in your perspective. So, in my example, I'd have to say what I would do would be, and this was different from what I did back in the day, but if I could do it again, I would be more peaceful, I would be more nice, and I guess I would just look at it from her perspective and realize I'm going to at least give this a shot, because she's looking out for my best interest, and I don't know. It's a very complicated thing, and I still have a lot more to learn. And sometimes there's really no right answer. I guess, especially in the U.S., you really sometimes get a sort of sugar-coated Candyland image of what life is like. And this isn't always the case. Sometimes you're forced to remove your selfish interest and look at the bigger picture. Sometimes you can't end up with the best job in the world. Sometimes the economy is bad and you have to do things you don't want to do. And sometimes an unpaid job at a very boring place you don't want to be at is better than just nothing at all. I'll see you guys later. Like, rate, comment, and subscribe. As always, all feedback in the comments is appreciated, advice, etc. I do try and respond to most of the comments as long as they are nice comments, and I'll see you guys later. And don't forget, the subscribe button is down below. It is free to click, and that will keep you up to date with my future videos. I'll see you guys later. This has been Will on YouTube.